I love Elden Ring. It might even be my favorite game of all time. It was the first game that got me out of my addiction to live service games like Overwatch and just reminded me how much I can gain from a good single player experience. I loved exploring all that the lands between had to offer, its challenges, and its amazing story. So, I recently finished the game in January, so it was to my pleasant surprise that we'd be getting a spin off game in May. And this game also happened to just combine two of my favorite video game genres, that being Soulsborne games and roguelikes. And to top it off, the game would also be multiplayer, meaning I'd get to play with my friends, which I've been playing the Soulsborne series with, along with a variety of roguelike games. Needless to say, I was really excited for this game when I first heard of it, even so much that I got the collector's edition, which I've never done for a game before. I even pre ordered it. I mean, the hype was so real that I bought the game even though I had already pre ordered it day one because the code didn't come out. I just wanted to play the game, I was that excited. And this is all just because I believe that FromSoft could deliver a great game. And now that I've played a whole lot like of this game, I'm kind of getting burnt out, honestly. But I feel like I'm able to give a somewhat thorough review of this game. So, in case you don't know, which you probably don't, a month ago or so, I made a review on Nightreign when I had limited experience, around like 50 hours, and I made a review, and it was pretty bad. I mean, I was just kind of freeballing what I was saying at the time, and yeah, I had a limited amount of experience. And now that I've played a whole lot more and pretty much covered all that the game has, I feel like it's time that I give a more updated and thorough review of the game because I just feel like there's a whole lot more to talk about with the new updates and all that stuff. This video will probably be outdated by the time it comes out just because I'm taking a long time just to, I guess, get used to editing. I'm not really good at this yet, and I just wanted to try to make it as good as I can for now. But yeah, that's enough blabbering. Please enjoy the review. Also, real quick before we start the video, I just want to clarify that I am not a video game dev. I'm just a random guy in his room talking about a game he likes. So I'm not going to be right on everything, and I'm not going to mention everything. So if you see something I got wrong, or if you want to talk about something I didn't talk about, feel free to leave a comment. I would love to respond to every single comment I get. But yeah, that's about that, and that's enough said. So without a further ado, let's hop into the gameplay. So to start off, this game is a roguelike. It's literally on the Steam page, but it's technically a roguelite. But for simplicity's sake, I'm going to call it a roguelike. However, I don't think Nightreign is a very good roguelike, which is a sentiment that I've seen floating around a lot. So it's not a very new idea, but I still think I talk about it, and I don't think it's reflected anywhere better than in the gameplay itself. So the basic loop is that you drop onto a map of Limveld and run around collecting items and upgrades from various structures and points of interest. Some of note are churches that give additional flasks, which are really good, the main castle, which can give tons of weapons and upgrades, and rises, which basically only help magic focused players by giving them specific class upgrades. And I'd be remiss not to mention the major and minor bosses that give you runes and upgrades as well as you progress throughout your run. And so the goal of each day is to try to get as much done as physically possible before the zone changes. Of course, you're going to have to adjust your plan depending on where the zone shifts. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's kind of like Fortnite, if you've ever played that, where the zone kind of just moves around every once in a while after a certain amount of time has passed, and you have to rotate there. Otherwise, you're going to die to the storm or the rain in this game. But yeah, once the final zone appears on the map, you have to rotate there and you will fight a major boss of that night. I call them night bosses. I think they're just called night bosses, but you have to fight those, and it's a major boss that serves as a transition between the days. On nights 1 and 2, you'll fight a major boss either from Elden Ring or from previous Soulsborne entries, which I think is pretty cool. After the first and second day, you'll go and fight the Night Lord of your run, and that's pretty much the peak of the run right there. I mean, the bosses are amazing, but yeah, that's pretty much the entire thing. It takes around 45 minutes, and once you get better at the game, you'll find that it takes a little bit less than that. But on average, it's about 45 minutes, so you can get a couple runs done back to back if you really wanted to. And that's pretty much the whole loop, but what's good about it? Well, for starters, I think that the timing system combined with the map really allows you to strategize your plan for the day and gives a good amount of player choice, which I always believe is good. But this is for both the good and the bad. The bad I'll talk about in a second. In those 14-ish minutes, you have to analyze where you want to go, take risks, and communicate with your teammates to try to get as many items and upgrades as possible. And obviously, you want to try to get as much done as humanly possible because those Night Lords are no joke. The game encourages you to try to min-max everything because the pressure of the timing system, which I really enjoy. It's been really fun getting to practice my decision-making skills and bicker with my teammates about the most optimal plan to take. And the pressure from the timing system is so great that sometimes, even though this may sound a little silly, I kind of get heated with my friends, and so do they with me because we're trying to be as optimal as possible because that's what you're encouraged to do. So we don't want to make dumb decisions. So whenever someone tells the group to do something, we have to make sure that it's the right move. And whenever it's not the right move, then we're kind of annoyed because, that's kind of time wasted and stuff. But it's never too deep. I just thought I'd say that to highlight the pressure that the timing system has. And as you get more familiar with the game, you start to understand what things are and aren't worth your time. Like, for example, I'm not going to try to take on the bell-bearing hunter, or Brian as I call him, day one, because we all know how that's going to go. And in case you don't, just know that it would go very, very badly. Brian is missing a stagger animation that every other boss has, making him eat through ultimate arts like it's absolutely nothing, and it's generally just a good idea not to try to challenge him just because of how time consuming it is. And again, time is precious in this game, so you want to maximize where you can. I typically try to build my runs around churches and everjails, but my own given loot may change depending on factors like if I need to upgrade my starting weapon or the type of enemies the castle has, and I will drop pretty much everything if the castle has Crucible Knights because they give so many runes and buffs that it's just pretty much a no-brainer not to go there. On paper, this loop is great, but in execution, I feel it fails due to the lack of RNG or variety in these runs, and in case you didn't know, roguelikes need variety to be replayable. And I think this problem stems from the core design of the map. I think a good way to highlight this is by comparing Nightreign to the Hades series. Unlike a game like Hades where you're only given a few choices per room, in Nightreign you get the entire map, which I'm quite fond of, but it leads to some problems. In Hades, you still get a choice by picking from a few possible directions, but you don't know the entire seed, which leaves room for randomization. Even the possibilities of the paths you get are randomized, making each run different from the last, as you have to try to make good with what you have in each chamber. When you play Nightreign, you get the whole seed, which already limits some of the potential of randomization. And the game does have some randomization with the first two circles, the weapons, buffs, and things like that, but in my opinion, it's not enough. To account for the sheer amount of choice a player has, you need to add more RNG elements, which the game does a pretty bad job of. Once you play the game for long enough, you start to realize that there are some patterns and seeds, with churches, bosses, and camps spawning in similar places. For example, on the right side of the Limveld map, there's typically an Everjail and a major or minor boss in close proximity. As far as I know, this has always stayed the same, at least for the base map of Limveld, allowing me to plan more of my run each time. And this is just one example. Once you get used to it, you start to realize these patterns all across the map, allowing for your runs to become more precise and rigid. The amount of choice during your run, combined with the rigidness of the map RNG, makes for a pretty boring experience. This redundancy even got to the point where I got the same seed back to back with the exact same enemies, and in my whole time playing this has happened like 5 times, which is pretty bad.
Did you open the Ever?
This might actually be the same seed, bro. Tell me why there's an ulcerated tree spirit at the lake again.
Oh my god!
And tell me why I got the Stone Skin Lords as the thing again.
Oh no!
I'm just saying, things are looking real sus.
Wait, and that fort? You know what
It was in the same place, bro.
It was and guess what it was? It was the guys. It was the captain.
2 back-to-back seeds is insane.
Which means the castle could be revenant again.
Ooh, 20k runs. Okay. Going to the boss down here. And then from the boss, oh, it's a Miranda, bro, it's the same seed. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same seed.
This is great. Oh, the same seed.
Look at all the random invasions.
I know, right? So roguelike-esque. And I know I'm not crazy. There are others experiencing the same stuff back to back, which is an issue because each run should feel different than the last. I shouldn't be getting the same seed back to back and knowing the exact route and optimal choices to make. To understand why this is, I decided to do some research, and the results were quite disappointing to say the least. For this part, my research comes from the fifth Matt over on GitHub, so make sure to check him out in the link down below that I've put in the description. But basically, the game of Nightreign is not very random. There are 320 seeds, with each Night Lord having 40 seeds, 20 for the base, map of Limveld, and 5 for each shifting earth. Within these seeds, pretty much everything is set in stone. Every POI, every church, and every Everjail, including the bosses in them, are predetermined by the seed. That's why there are already entire spreadsheets laid out with the possible seeds for a given Night Lord, which is insane to think about. Why is this the case? I have no clue, and I find it pretty stupid, and it's a common theme that applies to the other aspects of the loot. Okay, well, the seeds are rigid, but what about the special events? Don't they add randomization to the game? And the answer to that is yes and no. The special events are usually great as they shake up the monotonous loop and can give buffs, or even in the case of boss raids, run-changing buffs like attack power increase at the new side of Grace, or Flash also restoring FP. Some, like the Equilibrious Beast, even force you to prioritize breaking the curse, or else you're just going to be at a major health disadvantage for the entire run. Like I said, these are great, but just like the seeds, they're gate kept behind certain Night Lords. For example, when I was trying to 100% the game, I was desperate for a Morgot raid. Little did I know you could only get his raid on Adele, Gnoster, and Heloster. Sorry if I mispronounced, but yeah. And even then, it's still rare. I believe this is really stupid, and it's like the devs are kind of shooting themselves in the foot by doing this, because you have to select certain night bosses to get a chance to experience the game's content. To my knowledge, there's not even a reason for events being related to a certain Night Lord. The only one I can think of is the Madness for Libra. But even then, I don't think it's ever that serious to where you have to lock the content behind certain bosses. Certain events like the Walking Mausoleum or the Frenzy Tower I've seen like one time because they're rare and locked behind 2 of the 8 night bosses. The extra boss at the end of night 2, which I only experienced one time, was extremely fun because it caught me off guard, and it was just also nice to get another buff. So I was left wondering why they don't just add stuff like this into the game more often. I mean, I only got that second boss event after 60 hours of playing the game. I think a simple fix would be not only making them more common, but allowing them to happen on any seed. They add some variety that the map has taken away, so I think that's only fair that they added, considering that the weapons, buffs, and the first 2 circles are pretty much the only random things that happen within a run. Another way I think they could lessen the redundancy even further is by adding more maps besides Limveld. And I understand this probably wouldn't work from a lore perspective because everything is supposed to take place on Limveld. But I'm just going to say this for the sake of argument. And while it won't fix the issue itself, it will certainly make it better because there's more possibilities for randomization besides the 320 seeds that we have on Limveld. By changing the layout of the map, you leave room for more possibilities. And we do have something like this already in the game, but I don't think it does a very good job of fixing the problem. And that leads me to talking about the shifting earth. In my underbaked review, I talked about my problems with the shifting earths and their lack of variety as well. Originally, I thought that the shifting earth would have changed the entire map and offered more variety, but this kind of came true. While the locations do add more variety in the sense that the base map is different, it's still not enough in my opinion. The locations are always in the same spot with the same bosses and landmarks, making the experience extremely predictable. So basically, it's what I suggested, but worse, because instead of an entirely new map, it's still on the base map, which looks the same, and the location, which is supposed to bring new possibilities, only has one. And by one possibility, I mean just one format, like it's always going to be the same, enemies in the same spot, all of that stuff. And the 5 shifting earth seeds that each Night Lord have are pretty samey, and they're just only being 5 makes everything again more similar, but also increases the chances of you getting a seed back to back, which is only enhanced, I believe, with the enhanced Night Lords. That's where I've seen most players getting the same seed, and where I've gotten the same seed a couple times as well. Personally, I would like to see the shifting earth appear in different locations around Limveld and some changes to enemy or boss types. I can understand why something like this will probably not be implemented because it probably takes a lot of work and they're probably doing something similar in the DLC, but a man can dream. Thankfully, my biggest criticism of its rarity has been resolved with the introduction of the Everdark Sovereigns and the Collector Signboard. Before, I was barely ever getting shifting Earth locations, and it was just really annoying to just pray that you would get the location you wanted, or even get a shifting Earth at all. I think this aligns to what I suggested in my previous video in a balanced way, just because you have to use a resource to change the shifting Earth, which is limited, but you can always get more by playing the game. Also, here's a quick ranking of the shifting Earths in my opinion, and in last place, I think it's got to go to the Rod of Woods. I mean, it's basically Caelid, but even worse due to the Scarlet Rod. You're forced to rotate there for day 2, which is a problem with the rest of the shifting Earth locations, but it's even worse here because you have to get the power up, unless you want a very difficult time fighting the Night Boss. And in the shifting Earth, there are a bunch of time-consuming major bosses, which I guess is nice if you want a lot of buffs and runes, but I don't ever really get to fight them because I'd have to rotate super early on day 2 if I wanted to, meaning that I'd be under leveled. But yeah, I don't really like this one. In third is the mountaintop. I do actually like this one aesthetically more than the crater, but I feel like it's extremely situational. I just feel like the entire place was made with the intention of making Caligo an actual joke. I mean, like all the power-ups in that area are focused on anti-dragon and frostbite. So most of the time, I don't really see a point in going there unless I just need the buffs. In second, I have the crater, which I think beats the mountaintop just because it's way more consistent in the value that you can get from it. The legendary is pretty good, but it's really time consuming to get, and I often find myself not being able to complete it. I don't know any of the fancy skips yet, so that makes it more of a problem than if I knew that, but yeah. It's more of a planning thing on my end, but I do feel like it's a common theme that if you want to complete a shifting Earth, you have to pretty much dedicate all of day 2 to it. Which makes sense, but I've found that in my experience, the margin of error is really small as far as the time goes. All this is also seen in Noxella, which easily takes first place. You pretty much do have to dedicate all of day 2 to it, but unlike the others, I think it is worth it. You get a free Wind and Grace, and you get a duplicate weapon, which is just a walking mausoleum in Noxella, pretty much, which can completely change the course of the run. The loop of Noxella is pretty simple, just like all the shifting Earths, but there are so many bosses and buffs on the way to Estelle that I feel like it kind of makes up for the enemies being in the same place each time. So I really do enjoy being there, and I just like it aesthetically. It's really nice. I like Noxella, and yeah, that's my ranking. But that's enough talking about shifting Earths. I don't think that the problems that I've mentioned so far should be happening in Nightreign because it just doesn't make for a very appealing roguelike if you don't already love the game. Not to say that the game's bad, I do like the game, but in terms of it being a roguelike, it just doesn't do too well. And I know I previously said that I love to min-max and like the rigidness, I guess, what that comes with min-maxing, but only to a degree. I mean, if the goal of the game is to be replayable in a way that a roguelike should be, I shouldn't have my entire plan go smoothly 95% of the time. If you're going to give players that amount of choice, you have to make up for it with the RNG aspects of the game. I feel like they failed so far with that in the Shifting Earths and the special events and stuff, but I feel like it will get better with time. To make matters worse though, the game is Elden Ring Nightreign, which has familiar assets and bosses to the original, meaning there isn't as much new content for the players to engage with. Granted, it is not a full price game, but still. To fix this, most of the new stuff should be focused on the gameplay, taking what Elden Ring players already know and expanding upon it. And one way that the game has a lot of potential in doing this, I think, is through its weapons. The introduction of the passive weapon buffs are so incredibly game-changing, and I believe that they have the potential to make the game much more enjoyable. You can already make some pretty insane builds with the stats currently in the game due to the ability to stack them. Some of the builds that come to mind for me are the ones with improved guard breaking and successive attacks negating damage. This one run with Iron Eye, I had a total of 180% guard breaking improvement, meaning that I was practically walking over everything in my path, including the Night Lord, by the way. While these builds can be fun, I think that there's more potential in terms of the things that they can do. For example, and I know this is probably just a me thing, but I really love the periodic glintstone blades. And I know something like that is probably not the best example, but I think it's somewhere in the right direction. It's free damage, it's cool to watch, and it's just fun overall. I don't know the best implementation of these, and some could probably just be the like normal buffs that you get from like defeating a major boss or something, because some of the wacky buffs that they already have are pretty lackluster as well, like the Dark Cloud or the Frenzy Flame while walking. I don't really have many more ideas, but I feel like there's just some untapped potential there. But I'm curious to what you guys think in the comments down below. So if you have an idea, feel free to share. I'd love to talk to you about it. The last part I want to talk about in this section is the single player or multiplayer aspect of the game. I'd argue that this section is equally as important to this conversation as everything I've mentioned up until now. And I just say that because it's just so vital to the core design of the game and the player experience. And so I'll start with a single player. I actually don't mind the single player experience at all. I feel it's very fair towards the player now that some balance updates have come out, and it provides a challenging experience that can somewhat humble you. I was so used to dropping in and destroying everything with my friends that when I died in solo, I was reminded that I actually needed to focus. And that's not to say that playing with people makes the game easy, but it just makes the severity of dying that less important, because you can always get revived by a teammate. In solo, if you die, it can cost you the whole run due to major time loss or just a straight up defeat during a boss fight. But the challenge aside, I think it's great that you don't always have to be playing with others or be online to sit back and enjoy the game. Sometimes when I want to focus on remembrances or do challenge runs, I can just disconnect and not have to worry about the chaos of multiplayer. All this to say that it's nice to be able to play at your own pace. Moving on to multiplayer, I just want to say that playing with friends is how the game is meant to be played, and it makes the experience really enjoyable. And if not friends, then just people that you can communicate with, because it makes everything a lot easier. Being able to coordinate with teammates makes builds like this Triple Revenant one so much easier to pull off. Because you're already aligned, you don't have to worry about people going off on their own, or things like that. Obviously, this can still happen, but it's a whole lot less likely. In this example, because we only focused solely on Everjails and Rises, we killed Augur in a minute and 25 seconds, which is something I don't think I'd ever be able to do in a solo queued run. But besides that, playing with people that you know makes for a really enjoyable and funny experience. But yeah, that's it for playing with friends. Originally, I was way too negative regarding the multiplayer experience, and I'm referring to what most people regard as the multiplayer experience, and that is solo queuing. Obviously, the game is meant to be played with friends, and playing with people enhances any experience, but not everyone has two readily available friends to play with. At the time of making this video, both of my good friends that I play with are gone, so I got to experience the solo queuing experience with randoms. And everyone has already beat this horse to death, and then some, so I'm gonna keep this short, but it's extremely obvious that the devs have messed up big time by not adding some of the most essential features needed for a multiplayer game. There is no voice chat, no typing or messaging system, no cross-platform, and no adding system. I'm sure that if you've played any multiplayer game, you can see why this is a major problem. These things have been the bare minimum in the industry for years now, so I have no idea why they weren't added to this game. As I said earlier in the video, this game relies on coordination and min-maxing, and to do that, we need to be able to communicate with our teammates. Not being able to do so actively hurts the enjoyment of the game, knowing that the most optimal way of playing the game could be fixed in the most obvious way possible, at least for me. And I can only hope that they apply these changes soon and even apply them to future entries like the Dustbloods, but I won't actually be buying that because I'm not paying $600, but that's besides the point. Looking past these glaring issues, I really don't think that the solo queuing experience is that bad, especially once you're familiar with the game. And it's especially so if you get players who know what they're doing. You and them both know that the most effective way to win is by working together, and they're typically just as knowledgeable, if not more, at the game than you are, so you're able to have a pretty successful run. And obviously, not every teammate is going to be good, but I like to think that's only natural, and it comes with playing a multiplayer game. When this happens, I have a tip though. Do not go out on your own and try to play the whole game without your teammates. At that point, just go play solo. Take it from me. When I was less experienced with the game, I would go off my own, just thinking that I knew better than my teammates, thinking that I was taking the most optimal route and that I was saving time. But in reality, I was wasting time and was pretty much always falling behind my teammates by at least one level. And this just because the difficulty is scaled to match 3 players. So on average, it's going to take you more time to do things than if you're stuck with your teammates. After a while, I would try my best to communicate with my teammates, even with the terrible methods available, and play alongside them, even if our route wasn't the most optimal. Your run won't be perfect, but it'll certainly turn out better than if you went and played with your ego. If you're playing with more experienced players and you're more experienced yourself, it can be good to split up, but just as a general rule, it's best to stay with your teammates. However, one issue I do have with the solo queuing is the levers. Of course, this is natural in any multiplayer game, but it especially kills the potential for a run in this game. Depending on the composition, you can make it through, but if you only have an Iron Eye and a Recluse against the final boss Haloster, then I don't think you're gonna win. Of course, I don't know the reason behind every lever, and it doesn't happen often, but I still think it sucks. I like to believe that people get frustrated with their lack of control due to the bare bones communication system in this game. When I play, typically people leave as soon as something goes wrong, which I never really understood because you can salvage a run pretty easily in this game if you know what you're doing. Of course, there are other reasons like lack of internet or maybe someone got invited to the party, which I'm guilty of the latter, so I try to look past it. There's no real way to fix this, as you can't force a player to stay, and it's not like it's a ranked game or anything, so the merc punishment doesn't really matter, and I can hardly notice the punishment anyway, so you can't really fix it. It's part of the game. It's only natural. But at the end of the day, I prefer to play with randoms rather than solo, and that's just my preference, even if it's not as good as it should be. I look forward to those runs with experienced players where we're just flying through every boss, doing little silly emotes and gestures, trying to share our humor in the best way that we can. And while it's nowhere close to playing with people that you can truly interact with, I think it's something. Ultimately, I'm willing to give up some of the freedom and control that I have in a run if it means that I'm able to have more fun while playing. And by no means am I excusing the lousy job that FromSoft has done with the multiplayer side. And I can see why that's a deal breaker for most people, but I do love playing the game. So I am willing to look past these errors for the time being. So bosses in the Soulsborne series are typically known for being challenging and high quality. But what about the bosses in Nightreign? I mean, it is the main selling point of the game, so hopefully they would make some good bosses, I guess. But I'd have to say that most of them are really good, but some of them are not. And I'll talk about that more in detail in a minute. But for now, I think I'd start with the night bosses. I'm not just talking about the night lords here. I'm going to talk about the night bosses first and then the night lords. Not too much to say on the night bosses, but I just figured I'd go ahead and get it out the way. And like I said, there's not much to say about these bosses because at the end of the day, they're mostly just recycled Elden Ring or Souls boss content. And it's nice to experience some of these Souls bosses in the Elden Ring style, I guess you could say, but other than that, I feel like it's quite lazy and doesn't bring nearly as much excitement as the Night Lords do. And while they don't have to be on par with the Night Lords, it would be nice to see new bosses that provide an exciting and challenging experience to make the first 2 days a bit more lively than they currently are. I feel it's disappointing that for night 1 you can literally get a boss like the Bell-Bearing Hunter that can be found anywhere else in the overworld. It just makes the bosses feel a little less special. Most of the times the bosses aren't really a challenge because you've experienced them before and they just feel like more like a chore than anything, just like a box to check off. So I don't know. I'm not saying they have to make entirely new bosses, but 1 or 2 would be kind of nice to see. I don't know. And I feel like the rarity of bosses is also a problem. And again, this happens to stem back to that seeds being locked behind certain bosses. I think that my seeds are more skewed towards certain bosses, so that's why I'm getting some of the same night bosses again. But for example, with Godric, I completely forgot that boss was in the game, and then I just happened to get him because I only got him once. In my 120 hours of playing, I've only got him 2 times, and the second time was like at 120 hours. Here's a clip. Wait, what? You said it's Godric to grafted on day 1? No way. You know how cool that would be if Godric was in this game? I don't think he is. Oh yeah, he is. I've literally only got him 1 time, bro. 1 time. I've gotten Godric. It's very rare that. Oh, oh! Okay, wow, speak of the devil. But it just feels like some of the bosses are way too common compared to others, and I feel like it would shake it up a little bit, I guess, because we're probably not gonna get new night bosses, so at least having a good variety would be good. But most of the time, it's the same bosses of the Knights Cavalry, Tree Sentinel, Draconic Tree Sentinel, or something like that. Those are the most common bosses I get, but of course there are other bosses, but I just don't get them as much as I think I should be getting them. And so yeah, that's all I can really say about the night bosses. I mean, they're not bad. I just would like to see a little bit more out of them. And I understand that reusing the bosses was probably gonna happen to begin with. I mean, it is not a fully priced game or anything, so I'm just saying that for the sake of review and what I would like to see. But now that we've covered the night bosses, I think it's time to confront the final trial of the night as we prepare to claim the life of the Night Lord. At the end of the day, the Night Lords are what the whole game is about. I mean, everything leads up to the final confrontation with the Night Lord. It's the pinnacle of the run. And you get to go against these, what I was gonna say was expertly crafted bosses, but after the latest enhanced Night Lord, Augur, I just don't think that that statement is entirely true, but most of the bosses are pretty good. So yeah, here you and your teammates get to show the fruits of your labor, all the hard work that you've done for the entire run, and see if you can stand face to face with the boss. Each boss provides a unique experience, some being better and some definitely being worse, but nonetheless, I think that they all provide at least some fun in their experience. And I'm not going to sit here and dissect every single boss because that would take forever. So instead, I'm just going to talk about them as a whole, pointing out specific examples when needed. And I guess there's no better place to start than with the difficulty. And I'm just going to go ahead and assume that if you're watching this video, you've probably played a Souls or Soulsborne game. And then I'm sure you'll be able to relate that when I say that the bosses in these games can be extremely difficult. And honestly, in my opinion, that's a good thing. The bosses are designed to be like that, and I personally enjoy them because of the unique challenge they give that I haven't really got anywhere else in gaming so far. And I'm happy to say that the same level of boss difficulty still applies to Nightreign, except this time the bosses are more designed to be like massive raid bosses to account for the increase of players. And I like this because it's unique, and it's something that I'm not used to seeing in these games. Attacks from the bosses deal massive AoE damage and can kill you extremely quickly if you're not paying attention. You're dodging this rapid onslaught of attacks whether the boss is attacking you directly or not, and you have to pay more attention to the attacks themselves so you don't accidentally get hit. All of the bosses do this excellently, but I feel like one that does this really well is the Equilibrious Beast. In this fight, you have to constantly dodge projectiles, his staff, the pillars arising from the ground, and the constant madness buildup. This combination of different attacks can create an overwhelming experience where you're just trying your best to balance the healing, the dodging, and attacking. And I know what I just said was basically just describing every Souls boss ever, but I think the potential to be harmed indirectly or even randomly targeted just adds to the difficulty of the fight. And here's what I mean by that. I'd say that the potential to be harmed, not even while being aggroed, adds the difficulty because it's more of a slow burn type of thing for me. Like whenever you're fighting this boss or any of the Night Lords, really, you have that potential to get hit even if you're not aggroed. And so while indirect hits mostly won't kill you, they're still going to use resources like flask or items that you have in your inventory. So over time, if you keep getting hit, if you're not paying attention enough, you're going to run out of resources. And if the boss does aggro you, you're going to die. So over time, those things add up, and then maybe you're down once, you're down twice, and over time, you and your teammates are just dying, and then the run ends because you're not prepared, or you've used too many resources. Or sometimes it's even just a direct hit, really. It's not even a slow burn. It's really just the boss just kills you all at one time because you weren't paying attention and did a very powerful attack, or maybe someone got grabbed and you're trying to get them up and stuff because they weren't paying attention, and then that leads to you all dying. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I'm trying to get up a 3-tick teammate that's just not paying attention at all to the boss's attacks, and I have to pay for that. And this constant pressure from the difficulty also makes for a really immersive experience, and I think that the Night Lords deliver on that beautifully. I love immersion in gaming a lot, pretty much more than anything, and it's why I play video games in the first place. They just have that magic of making you feel like you're actually there, even though something like that would never be possible. During the fights with the Night Lords, I am completely immersed. I mean, I'm so caught up in the moment of managing flasks, dodging attacks, and coordinating with my teammates, I just forget I'm sitting in my chair. There's just so much going on, it can feel quite overstimulating, with these attacks taking up the entire screen. And at that point, I'm there, in Nightreign, fighting for survival, almost forgetting my existence in the real world. But obviously that picture is a bit exaggerated, but you get the point. Seeing Holoster, or whatever his name, cut through the sky like it was a piece of paper, just to slam into the ground at Mach 7 was insane.
What's she doing? Oh, what is that? Oh my gosh! Oh!
Or like when the enhanced gaping jaw just turned into a literal torpedo and started blitzing around the entire screen. I could barely keep track of the boss with my eyes, and attacks like these are really cinematic in a way that brings me into the gameplay and the fight itself. And again, those moments truly make me feel like I'm fighting for my life, which can lead to some really amazing moments. I'm sure you've seen clips, but there's no other experience like clutching a fight in a video game, and the Night Lords are really good at creating that experience as well. Your teammates are down with 3 ticks and you're trying everything you can to get them up. You're running around the map trying to avoid attacks so you can build up your art gauge. You're using your ultimate art, you're trying as much as you can, but it's all for naught. And after a while, you realize nothing you do is going to work, so you have to face this boss head on, leading to either a tragic last stand or a triumphant victory against uncertain odds. And a lot of this difficulty and immersion obviously comes from the fact that these bosses are new. And those initial attacks where you have no idea what's going on and you're just trying to survive is where most of that comes from. But thanks to the fact that you can fight the boss over and over even after you win, which is something I think Soulsborne games should do more often, difficulty and immersion can wear off pretty quick. After a few attempts and wins, you get the general feel for the boss and it becomes quite easy to counter them with the weakness and experience. Even with the final boss of the game, I still feel like I'm able to breeze through them after enough experience. And this isn't really a bad thing, it's only natural to occur if you're given the chance to refight the boss like a million times. But the problem is that I do wish there were a little bit more bosses than there are. I mean, 8 is kind of few, especially when they vary as much in quality as they do. And honestly, I don't know why I'm making it seem like most of them are bad. It's really just 2 for me, Sentient Pest and Augur, but I'll talk about them in a second. Thankfully, the addition of the Everdark Sovereigns has fixed this issue for me. At the time of recording, there have only been 4, the Gaping Jaw, Dark Drift Knight, Sentient Pest, and Enhanced Augur. I really like the direction they're taking with these because they keep adding a fresh new take on the bosses that allow players to come back. Granted, I do think that they have been kind of dipping in quality since like the releases, but I am looking forward to the final 4, that being Holoster, Fisher in the Fog, Equilibrious Beast, and Trifalius. I don't think they can mess those bosses up at all, so hopefully I'm not wrong in the future. But yeah, focusing on what we do have right now, I think that the Enhanced Gaping Jaw was pretty much the peak of the bosses. I think it's dragged down by the fact that the boss runs around way too much, but it adds so much back to the boss that I was getting that initial immersion that I got when I fought the boss without the enhancements. I mean, the torpedo attack or the tornado, it was just all so new, difficult, and it took me a long time to actually be able to beat the boss. It was like 6 attempts that I had, and that's what I like, a difficult experience that makes me want to keep playing the game. And then we got the Dark Drift Knight, which was really fun as well. I mean, we didn't get as much as we got with the Enhanced Gaming Jaw, but the fight was still extremely enjoyable, especially on Executor, where you can just pretty much parry everything of that boss, which makes it extremely enjoyable as well. But then we have the enhanced sentient pest, and I do not like this boss at all. I mean, I don't like the original sentient pest already, but this just made it even worse. I mean, there was a game-breaking bug at the beginning of release where if you just happen to beat both the Fartis, I think, and Gnoster, then your game would just soft lock and you couldn't progress the fight any further, and it was just a complete waste of time to get to that boss, which I don't even like already, and then not be able to beat it because it's some stupid bug. And the boss just runs around too much. I mean, the possession thing, I guess, is pretty cool, but it's just more of the same. I mean, like, the whole strategy is just kill Fartis over and over so it doesn't possess Gnoster the Moth, because if it does, it's just, again, you can't really hit the boss, and it's just really annoying, like the original. The Moth is really annoying, which is also a common theme with Augur. I don't like Augur, because Augur runs a lot, and it's really annoying to try to get up next to that boss, because you'll waste all your stamina to get over there, and you'll get like one hit in, and then the boss will run away again. So yeah, in case you can't tell, I don't really like those bosses. I don't like running too much during a boss, which is a problem with the gaping jaw, but at least that boss is fun. But somehow they made Augur even worse. I mean, I thought they were going to make Augur cool, because I was like, you can only go up from here, but no. They made this boss really, really bad. I mean, it's like one of the worst FromSoft bosses I think I've ever fought in my entire life. It was an absolute snooze fest, because they take away your hard-earned weapons that you've been working for the entire run to replace it with an Ash of War that you spam the entire time. It's just not fun to use. You just click the same button over and over. You wait 5 seconds, click the button. Wait 5 seconds, click the button. And it's not like the boss is even difficult either. If you just spread out with your teammates, you can pretty much just go unharmed the whole time. But yeah, that's what I mean with dipping in quality. But hopefully they can only go up from here in terms of the boss quality, because the last 4 bosses that remain, the Equilibrious Beast, Fisher in the Fog, Heloster, and Trifalios, are all really good bosses. So I think they're going to only go up from here. I can't imagine it getting worse, because those bosses are already really good on their own. So hopefully I'm not wrong in the future. But yeah, that's about it for this section on the enhanced bosses. Not too scripted, but yeah, I just wanted to go off my mind. So while we're talking about the bosses here, I thought I would just mention the beautiful music this game has to offer. Now, I listen to a lot of music, but I don't really know exactly what goes into making it, and I don't really care. All I know is that when I hear something that's good, I know it's good, and that is 100% true for this game soundtrack. I might be glazing here, but honestly, I think FromSoft music has got to be some of the best out there. I mean, my favorite is Ludwig's theme from Bloodborne, but that's just my personal taste. And when it comes down to Nightreign, my opinion is, again, not swayed. When I heard that Shoei Miyazawa, or sorry if I mispronounced that, but yeah, Shoei Miyazawa was working on this, I knew we were in good hands. The music composers really nailed it on the head with this somber theme of isolation they were going for. And the violin in the background is just carrying as always. No plan this time. The violin just going crazy. Also, the boss themes are like really good. Each has its own distinct feeling, from the exotic nature of the Equilibrious Beast to the epic theme of the Fisher in the Fog. These songs are just so damn good that I don't really have that much to say about them. I just say that my favorite themes are Helosters and Calicos. And something funny is, I was listening to the, enhanced version of the music before they even came out, because it's in the digital soundtrack. So I didn't even realize I was listening to it until I heard it in the boss fight. But yeah, that's besides the point. I do say though that my theme of hatred towards sentient pests and Augur does carry over to the soundtrack as well. And I promise you it's not unvalid. I just think that Augur's theme is just really, really calm. Like, I know it fits like the sleep theme and everything, but like, it makes me want to go to sleep in real life, yeah? So it's not very intimidating for a boss, and I don't know, it's just not it. The enhanced version is a bit better, but I don't know, it's still not that good. And Sentient Pest, I just really don't like the medieval whimsical feel they were going for here. It just seems really odd and out of place. But yeah, again, that's just more of a personal taste thing for me. But yeah, moving on to the next section of this video, the Nightfarers. Other than the bosses, I'd say that the Nightfarers are probably the coolest part of the game. I mean, each character has a unique feeling based on some type of class from either Elden Ring or previous Souls entries. Like Raider is more of the strength build fantasy, while Executor is the Sekiro based samurai class. and here I'm just going to quickly describe all of them and how fun they were to me. Starting off with the poster child of this game, we have the Wilder. Now, this guy goes by many names, John Nightreign, or the CEO of Aura, if you will, but all glazing aside, he's got to be one of, if not the best characters in the entire game. He's really just that guy all around. I mean, he has really good stats in everything and can pull off a lot of builds. His passive, called the Sixth Sense, allows for you to cheat death once by dodging an otherwise lethal attack. And on top of that, gets restored once per grace, which can allow for some more risky gameplay. Though I'd say the single best thing about his kit is his grapple, allowing you to travel more efficiently, especially with a jump tech at the end where you jump at the end of the grapple animation that kind of just propels you forward. And having two of these things can really be a game changer because of how much more efficiently you can get around the map. In addition to this, with the proper relic, Wilder can pull off one of the most badass follow-up attacks in the entire game, where he just kind of does like a Beyblade attack with his fire spinning sword. It's just like so cool. This thing does decent stance damage, and again, having two grapples can make this absolutely destroy enemies. I like to use the Calico relic and Tandem with the follow-up attack relic to constantly apply frost, and then just get rid of the frost status with the flame, then frost again. You get the point. But if I don't do that, I'll just always run two grapples because of just how insanely consistent it is for value and just how fun it is to use. But lastly, his ultimate is really fucking cool. I mean, it's basically just a mini nuke that he uses to hit enemies with. And you can quickly use it, charge it, or even use it in the air. And I really like using the charge version because it looks cool, does more damage, and I generally don't miss it, which seems to be a common theme that a lot of Wilder players happen to deal with. But yeah, if you couldn't tell, I really like Wilder, and he's definitely my most played character by far. But moving on to Raider. This guy is by far the definition of the strength player fantasy in Soulsborne games. He's the walking embodiment of just picking up a big ass stick and killing an enemy, and I'm here for it all the way. He specializes in colossal weapons for that big damage and has really good stats concerning vigor, strength, and endurance, making him an absolute tank during boss fights or just random enemy encounters. There's just something about wielding two massive colossal weapons, pretty much the size of Raider himself, that just makes me feel invincible. Shredding through enemy stance and HP also becomes easier with his passive, which allows him to use his skill, Retaliate, in a more effective manner. On its own, Retaliate is pretty damn good. I mean, it does pretty good stance damage and blocks incoming damage that could otherwise be lethal, kind of like Wilder's Sixth Sense. However, Raider's passive allows him to build a more powerful version by taking damage outside of his usage of Retaliation. This version does a whole lot more stance damage and can straight up knock over enemies when fully charged. The last thing I want to talk about with Raider is his ultimate, which does a decent amount of damage but also gives a strength boost to him and his allies by summoning a massive block of stone that looks like a fridge. More times than not though, this ult can be rather annoying, especially when used with relics that extend its duration, because enemies or rewards can be stuck in them and you kind of just have to awkwardly wait for the block to disappear, which can be really time consuming. The ultimate is fun though because it can save you from incoming damage if you like get on top of it, so I do like it, but yeah, it's alright. But moving on to the Duchess. But unlike Raider, I don't really like the Duchess. I mean, I don't like using daggers, first off, which she does specialize in, and if I wanted a bunch of successive attacks or procs, then I'll just go Executor. I will say though that her dodge is pretty good because of the insane amount of iframes you get per dodge, which makes weaving in and out of combos feel really fluid. Her passive, called Perfect Poise, allows for these dodges to happen, and it kind of reminds me of the dodges that Nier Automata has with 2B. Her ability, called Restage, does 50% of the damage done to a singular enemy in the last 3 seconds to happen again. This ability is really good when it's used with status procs, or really any time that you see yellow on a boss health bar. I mean, it just kind of shreds, especially whenever you get a relic that enhances the damage. And even though you can get some insane damage with, it's just not very fun to use in my opinion. I mean, it's just pressing a button. And compare that with other abilities where you have options with how you want to use them, it's just kind of boring. And she's more of a support character, and I typically don't like playing support characters, even like in shooter games like Overwatch. I like to play tanks and DPS because they do the damage and they have options on how they do that damage. With Recluse, you're kind of just helping other people do their damage. You're not doing the damage yourself, you're just enhancing the damage that other people have done. So it's just not as fun for me. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just how I view it. Her ultimate art, called the Finale, just makes you and your teammates in range invisible for about 10 seconds. And originally when I saw this, I was like kind of freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so broken. But in practice, it's not really what I imagined it to be. I mean, it's cool being invisible for 10 seconds. I think that it does wear off quicker if you start hitting enemies or whatever, but it's just not as powerful as I thought, especially when compared with other ultimate arts in this game. And it's just kind of boring. I mean, you just go invisible for 10 seconds, and that's about it. It's only really good for resurrecting your teammates in a pinch. Finally, she has A Intelligence and B Faith, so if you ever wanted to go a mage build or something like that, that's also an option, but I don't know why you would do that when you can just play Recluse. I've never played a magic-based class in Elden Ring, and that's just because it didn't look very entertaining to me, and of course the stigma around playing a magic build. But that all changed whenever I played Recluse. I mean, she's provided me with that experience by allowing me to use so many different spells, and I really do enjoy playing her. Her skill, called the Magic Cocktail, allows for her to infinitely replenish FP, allowing you to get back to using those overpowered spells. You gain the FP by collecting affinity residuals from her passive, called the Elemental Defense, which are basically elements like fire, lightning, holy, and magic. These affinities can be collected from enemies or teammates and will change elements based on what type of damage done to them. I'm going to be real, the Recluse experience is just spamming the skill button until you have a random concoction. Most of the time I have no idea what I'm doing and just hope that it's one of the cool ones like the Lightning Blade or the one that turns you into a literal fireball. Her ultimate, called the Soul Blood Song, marks enemies like Iron Eye skill, but instead of doing extra damage, it allows people who get hit to gain back their FP and HP. This lasts for about 16 seconds and it does decent damage as well as giving good iframes, but that's pretty much her whole kit. But as far as it goes playing this character, I think it's really kind of like a feast or famine. I really do enjoy the Recluse whenever I'm given like a good staff, but I do not like playing her when I don't have a good staff. I don't know how to put it. Like Wilder, I could use his starting greatsword and still have fun, but Recluse is entirely dependent on the spells that you get, so it's kind of just more like an RNG thing. Take for instance Lusan's Glintstone staff. I love that staff so much because it's just fun to use, and usually it has something good like Ronnie's Dark Moon on it, and it does a lot of damage, and it's just fun to use. So yeah, if I don't get a good spell or a good staff, it's just not as fun for me. But enough ranting, on to the next character, who is the Executor. If you like Sekiro, then you're really gonna like the Executor. He specializes in katana focused gameplay, where I typically like to apply as many sass effects as possible, considering how many successive attacks can be done. I like to stack the bleed with the Caligo and Sentient Pest relics to add the frost and poison to my starting armament for a lot of status procs. However, where he really shines is not with the status, but rather his cursed sword. Using this skill allows you to parry incoming attacks like Sekiro, and also allows for stance break build up as you block more attacks. He also has this little golden sword skill that you can use once you've built up enough parries, but in my opinion, it hasn't really done that much and it's not like that impactful. The skill ceiling for the cursed sword is pretty high, as there's a lot of individual attack patterns that you're going to have to familiarize yourself with in order to consistently parry, which I like a lot. I said this before, but using the cursed sword with the bosses is just super fun, and all around makes me feel like I'm just playing Sekiro all over again. His ultimate art turns you into a wolf-like beast where you regain not only the full HP that you've had, but vastly extended HP, and you do some pretty good damage. It's great for getting up teammates with 3 ticks or just trying to tank damage in a pickle, but if you die in the beast form, you also die when you turn badge, which happens to me a lot. I just get carried away mashing the buttons because I feel invincible, being this gigantic creature that I am, that I just forget I can die. But you do have to be careful with this because anything with a lot of AoE, like say the enhanced Dark Drift Knight, whenever he does that arrow attack that rains down a bunch of arrows, because your hitbox is so big, if you're in that form, you're gonna get shredded. You're just gonna die in like 2 seconds. So again, be careful with this anything that has like massive AoE, you're gonna die pretty quick. But this next character does not have a big hitbox. In fact, it's probably the smallest in the game, and that is Revenant. The Revenant is a faith/incantation based character that is just super fun. I was a bit harsh on her when I originally was making this script because I felt the Recluse could play her entire class better than she could. But with the introduction of the Dark Knight of the Wise, things have changed. This relic has single-handedly made Revenant viable for me, as I was getting upwards of 400 FP by the end of my runs, meaning I didn't even have to use a single Starlight Shard for the Night Lord fight. What also makes Revenant more enjoyable is her ability to use any weapon type. You can use her starting armament, which has a badass riposte, or you can use the biggest colossal weapon you can find. She also has family members that she can summon during her fights, with the best one being Subsection in my opinion. They're mostly used for taking enemy aggro while you just spam your overpowered incantations. The last thing for Revenant is her ultimate art, which triggers a Ghost Slam explosion that can provide immortality to you and your teammates for about 15 seconds. This is what I meant when I said that the Duchess's ult, the finale, is not as good as the other ultimate arts in the game, because this ultimate art just outshines it in pretty much every way possible. Granted, you're not invisible, but you have immortality for 15 seconds, and you get a whole lot more choice with how you want to use it, because it's so powerful in pretty much any scenario. Are you trying to save Flask in the storm? Pop the ult. Want to insta-res a 3-stack teammate? Pop the ult. Want to spam an incantation without fear of dying? Pop the ult. You get the point. The ultimate art also helps family members by giving them enhanced powers, but the best one has got to be Sebastian's Comet and Zero-like attack. Overall, the Revenant is just really fun, as incantations are always fun to use for me. I mean, it was the first build I went for an Elden Ring, and it was extremely fun. But yeah, moving on to another ranged-ish character, the Iron Eye. And this character has a kind of negative stigma, I guess, because everybody thinks that it's for babies, and I'm not going to deny that. I mean, he does kind of trivialize the game because he's just kind of broken, but I'm still going to play him because it's extremely fun to play. In all of my Elden Ring playthroughs, I don't think I've ever tried to take a bow or make it even work. It just seemed boring. I don't know. But here in Nightreign, Iron Eye makes using a bow so fun. And I feel like that has a lot to do with his marking skill, because it's just so overpowered. You do so much consistent damage already, and then you can do even more with an added stagger due to the weak point. And it's not like the arrows are hard to hit either. I mean, the lock-on feature makes hitting the shots pretty damn easy, so you're going to be building up the weak point a lot. Also, it can be extremely powerful in the hands of allies as well, like with Lightning Bolt with the Revenant. It's also really fun to have two of the skills because it already has pretty good stance damage, and having a second one allows for efficiently taking out smaller enemies. But what I love about having two is the insane amount of iframes you get just from using the skills. I typically use one to mark the enemy, and then the second one to straight up ignore the enemy's attack once I'm inevitably aggroed. If you time it right, you can go through a lot of attacks in the game, making Iron Eye so strong because you're pretty much just invincible. Not to mention, he's the king of status effects. There's not really a reason to try to get another bow when you can just have poison on your starting armament and just make him that much more broken. Last thing, his ult is pretty nice, and I do appreciate the iframes you get as well, but I don't know, it just doesn't hold up to the rest of his kit in my opinion.
Maybe stalling. You gotta climb up there while dodging, so.
Yeah, and then he comes over
Yo,
here.
bro,
like,
Iron Eye, the massacre was not necessary, bro. Relax. Oh my goodness. She just blew out the whole block, bro.
Last and certainly least is the Guardian. I'm gonna keep this extremely short. It's kind of like playing a tank in a hero shooter. You kind of just sit there with your shield and block while doing some damage, while your cooler DPS counterparts do all of the cool stuff. No offense to the Guardian mains out there, you do God's work, but I just don't like playing them. But the Nightfarers are really fun, but I do believe some of them stand out more than others in terms of how much of an impact they can have. I hope FromSoft does some tweaks in the future, or maybe even adds new abilities to choose from, but I'm pretty content with what we have for now, and my enjoyment of a certain character is clearly subjective, so please don't let my opinion influence how much you like a character or anything like that. But just keep doing you. I'm not gonna explain the entire lore here, but I would like to make a video in the future covering it, as well as my opinions and interpretations. Instead, I'm gonna give my thoughts on it overall. Of course, the lore is amazing. I mean, it's a FromSoft game, but here in Nightreign, it's the first time I've actually gone out of my way to discover the lore for myself. I feel like the game makes the lore accessible in a way that FromSoft hasn't really done before, other than like in Sekiro, where the story is pretty much in your face. Of course, some reading and speculation you're going to have to do on your own, but it's not like you have to read every single item description to understand the game. And that's where I want to give my praise to the remembrances, because they really help with the casual player getting invested in the lore and the characters in the game. I've always wanted to get into the stories and theory crafted associated with FromSoft games, as the worlds just have so much spectacle and allure, it just feels impossible not to want to understand the whole picture. However, playing the game is often not enough, and it requires a lot of work and time to understand the lore. And I don't really like to watch lore videos and all of that because I just feel like it takes away from the experience and memorability of discovering things for myself. For example, I feel like I like the Wilder ending more than the Revenant one simply because of the fact that it wasn't spoiled. And as much as I wanted to like the Revenant one more, it just wasn't able to stick with me on a personal level like the Wilders because I wasn't fully immersed when I discovered it. Thankfully, the barrier of entry for the lore in this game is much lower than normal, but not to the level where the game is holding your hand while you play it. The journal entries and side quests leave room for theory crafting and critical thinking, but it doesn't require you to know 100 million things in context to understand it. I just like the remembrances so much because I feel like it's given me the push I need to start going out of my way to truly understand the stories present in FromSoft games. Overall, I've just found exploring the story and the characters through remembrances to be extremely fun. I was initially disappointed when I saw there was only a few lines of dialogue that each Nightfarer had at the round table. I really wanted to get invested in these characters and the mystery surrounding all of them, so I was pleasantly surprised when I found out about the remembrances. This game's visual direction, whatever you want to call it, is absolutely stunning. The gloomy atmosphere mixed with the cool blue colors just make the game feel straight out of a shoegaze song for me. This game feels like Elden Ring, obviously, but it clearly has its own identity as it's set in an alternate timeline. I got the art book included in the collector's edition, and in every single page you can just see so much beauty that's reflected into the game. I don't know, the art of this game just makes me want to live in the world so I could feel its atmosphere, if you know what I mean. Not actually live in the world, but yeah. Also, I'll say it again, whether intentionally or not, this game was just built for being cool or just ore farming. The way they depict all the Nightfarers from the promotional materials to their lines in game just reeks of mystery and depth. I mean, have you even seen the game trailer? Three Nightfarers valiantly trying to pull themselves together to continue to take on the night. It's absolute cinema. But that's enough glazing on the aesthetic of the game. The last thing I want to talk about is the community. So this game kind of fell off tenfold in terms of player count. I mean, it went from 300,000 to like 30,000, which I guess was only natural. There's only so much content in the game. And like I said, it's not a very good roguelike. And by no means is this game dead. It just wasn't able to hold on to the sheer amount of players that it had initially once the hype wore off. And I'm just looking at the Steam charts, but in the community that remains, there is a good love for this game. I'm not too heavy into the community or anything, but the amount of memes and artwork I see just show me how much the player base is enjoying the game. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention FromSoft's effort to engage with the community. I really do appreciate not being left in the dark about development like some other games that I've played in the past. On the Steam page and even on YouTube, they're posting updates on the Everdark Sovereign schedule, community artwork, and official Discord servers. Granted, I don't think a Discord server is going to fix the main issue for most players regarding communication, but it does show some effort on FromSoft's part. I feel like the promotion of the game definitely set the tone for how involved FromSoft was going to be. I mean, they were releasing music videos I felt like AMVs I'd seen in the early 2010s with Bring Me to Life. It just felt like they wanted to connect with players, and I guess I wasn't expecting that, so I'm quite appreciative. And speaking of appreciation, I do have to mention how goated From Software is for not introducing microtransactions into this game, especially because it would have worked. I mean, FromSoft has an extremely loyal fan base, and other games have gotten away with selling shit with way less loyalty. So they could have made us pay for skins, but they didn't, and I'm glad because it makes the game feel not like a slop cash grab. And there are always microtransactions and ads everywhere in gaming, so it's refreshing to play a live service game that is built on good faith and isn't meant to drain my whole wallet. Okay, I did spend a lot of the time in this video bashing the game for its flaws, but that's because I really do enjoy playing the game, and I want it to last. And that means improving the gameplay, and I just wanted to point out areas where I think that can be improved. Even if the bosses become too easy, which I don't think is going to happen, but that's not the point. It's a given that if you do something enough times, it's going to become easy. So I just want to make sure I can have fun while playing, and the bosses are not just the highlight of the entire run, yeah? And I don't want the game to die, so I hope that they do improve these features. But even if FromSoft doesn't implement these changes and the game dies sooner than I expected, I will still feel satisfied with my experience. I like to think of the value of a game as $1 per hour. And obviously there are exceptions, but if the game is $40 and I played over 120 hours, then I think the game delivered for me. So in conclusion, this game was an extreme bang for my buck, and I appreciate this new way to experience Elden Ring despite its many flaws. And I hope you do too. If you haven't played Nightreign, I don't know why you watched this video. Please go play the game. Um, but actually, I would understand, if you don't want to play single player or you don't want to play with friends. That makes sense. I know this game has a lot of stuff, and if I missed anything, or if there's something you want to talk about, feel free to leave a comment down below. I will respond to every comment if I get them, which is probably not many, but yeah, the point still stands. Anyways, thank you guys for watching if you made it this far. Have a wonderful day, and yeah, if you would like to stick around and hear me talk about my experience making this video, then yeah, do that, but if not, peace. Okay, so the video is over now, and let me just say I am very glad that it's over. And like, it's not like I hated making this, but like, man, it was certainly a battle. Um, had no idea it was going to be this long, honestly. The script's like 26 pages or so, and yeah, I didn't expect it to be like that, especially for my first like actual video. But man, I've been working on this for like about a month, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that I did the script, made half the video, and then had a bright idea to scrap the entire video and then the script as well and redo it. So yeah, I don't know. I'm actually kind of glad I did it though, because I think the final result is much better than what I had, and I learned a lot about editing and stuff and productivity or whatever when it comes down to editing. Like, man, working on one monitor is kind of a nightmare, but I'm not going to invest into anything too much because I don't have like a following or anything. I don't have like any reason to go out and just spend money. So yeah, but I could definitely work on some things as far as editing goes, like my mic. I don't know if it's the best, and sometimes it just sounds really weird and like clicking noises and stuff. But also like background music, I kind of just doing a bunch of OSTs that I like and call it a day. But yeah, and a lot of stuff. Sometimes I didn't get to go in like completely with what I was saying sometimes, and a lot of that just had to do with the fact that I was kind of just trying to get this over with, and yeah, it wasn't the best quality at the end, but I saw it through, and I think that's what matters. And yeah, I enjoyed the video. Sometimes it was really motivating to work on, and other times I was losing my mind. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do from here, but I look forward to it. Maybe I want to try looking at things more critically, like analyzing, like maybe like lore videos or something like that. I think that'd be really fun. But I do like reviews, so I think I might try to incorporate both, like a lore analysis and a review in the same video. But I'd have to work on getting the video time down, so that way it's not like 4 hours or something like that. But yeah, anyways, I'll see you guys around, and leave criticism in the comments or tell me what you liked about the video. And yeah, thanks for watching, and peace.